This is Scams and Cons News with Jim Grinstead.
In this week's news, a man cons people into letting him use their phones, then drains their bank account of money. And a Canadian scammer will go to jail for 10 years for a $175 million email fraud in the U.S. But we begin with the story of an Uber driver who was killed while delivering a package for a scammer. WCMH reported the story.
The Clark County Sheriff's Office saying William Brock is charged with the murder of Lolitha Hall back on March 25th. The Sheriff's Office saying Brock received a scam call claiming a relative of his was in jail and needed money to get out. While on the phone, Lolitha Hall, an Uber driver, was told to pick up a package at Brock's home. When she arrived, the Sheriff's Office says Brock held her at gunpoint and demanded to know who told her to come to his house. When she tried to leave, deputies say he shot her once, got into a scuffle, and shot her 2 more times, killing her. The Sheriff's Office says Hall had nothing to do with the scam. Brock pleaded not guilty and is being held on a $200,000 bond.
Police have arrested a woman who was scammed into robbing a bank. USA Today reports a 74-year-old Ohio woman is facing serious charges after allegedly robbing a credit union in an attempt to remedy her financial troubles. Ann Mayers of Hamilton, Ohio, was arrested at her home after the Fairfield Township Police Department said she robbed an R Group credit union. Authorities say Myers entered the bank and demanded money while displaying a handgun. Police say they found the car Mayers was allegedly driving during the robbery when they searched her home. Mayers reportedly admitted to the crime when police arrived. Detectives also discovered a handgun in Mayers' vehicle. Prior to this incident, Mayers had no criminal history. She's now been charged with aggravated robbery with a firearm and tampering with evidence, both of which are felonies. Sergeant Brian McCroskey of the Fairfield Police Department says Mayers' family told detectives she may have been the victim of an online scam before the robbery. A man who said he was a performer approached a woman on a beach and asked to add himself to her Instagram account to help promote himself. She said she supports local performers and handed over her phone. Later, when she looked at the phone,
I saw an email that said that I had $1,200 through Venmo to this stranger.
Police say the scam is not unusual and cautioned people about handing over their phones. This is Scams and Cons News. Okay, I'm busted. I'm not out on the porch enjoying the wonderful warm weather here in Nashville. The cicadas are driving me indoors. I have limited grill time because I don't like cicadas landing on me. No outside dining at restaurants I frequent. But that doesn't mean I don't crave summer food. Fortunately, Factor has my back. I can cook fresh foods in 2 minutes, then go hide in my recording studio for peace and quiet. And it's great food. Now, I'm a carnivore, but if I wanted keto, calorie smart, or protein plus, I could do it. They have 35 different meals from which to choose. That's right, you choose the meals. You're not stuck with whatever's delivered to your door. It's summer, so one of my go-tos is the tomato pork chop. On rainy days, the Parmesan chicken is satisfying. And there's something else. I'm not the only one in Nashville that loves Factor. I regularly see Factor trucks on the streets delivering fresh food to my neighbors. Clearly, my neighbors are smarter than I thought. If you're in a cicada-infested area, you may not be able to sit outside, but you can still eat great food. And I've got a great deal that can go towards suntan lotion when these damn bugs go away. Head to factormeals.com/scamsandcons50 and use code scamsandcons50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box. That's scamsandcons50 at factormeals.com/scamsandcons50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next box while your subscription is active. For more than 20 years, Canadian Patrice Runner conned more than 1.3 Americans out of more than $175 million through an elaborate mail-order psychic scheme, but his fraudulent premonitions never predicted the 10-year prison sentence he now faces. Runner, a dual Canadian-French citizen previously based in Montreal, ran his phony psychic mail operation from 1994 to 2014. Posing as renowned psychics Maria Duval and Patrick Guerin, he sent millions of letters to vulnerable and elderly Americans promising wealth and happiness in exchange for fees. Despite his victims making dozens of payments totaling thousands of dollars, Runner's psychic visions never materialized. In a 2023 interview, he claimed the scheme was just not moral, rather than outright fraud. In 2020, Runner was finally arrested in Spain and extradited to the United States. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison after being convicted on 14 charges, including mail fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering. 4 of Runner's co-conspirators have already pleaded guilty to their roles in the scheme, which was operated out of Montreal using a network of shell companies. While evading authorities, Runner lived a lavish lifestyle in countries across Europe and Central America. An elderly Florida woman is taking Bank of America to court over a multi-million-dollar scam. 67-year-old Lynn Bucklet is suing the bank, alleging negligence, breach of contract, and violations of federal law. According to a cyber litigation firm, Buckland lost $2 million from her accounts after falling victim to a sophisticated scam. The scheme started when Buckland began receiving emails and phone calls from people posing as investigators from the Federal Trade Commission. These con artists told Buckland that her Social Security number had been compromised and they needed to look into her finances. One of the scammers even went so far as to send Buckland fake credentials, including a badge and an FTC letter to make the threat seem legitimate. Buckland believed the ruse and started transferring her money into cryptocurrency accounts through wire transfers at her local Bank of America branch. Despite the irregularity of the transactions, Bank of America employees did nothing to question their validity. The bank is accused of essentially greenlighting the transfers that drained Buckland's life savings. Buckland initially tried to recoup her lost funds by reaching out to Bank of America, but the bank was only able to recover about $500,000 before shutting down the case. Buckland is accusing the bank of negligent hiring, breach of contract, and violations of laws like the Electronic Funds Transfer Act. More than 60 people were scammed by fake parking attendants during a St. Louis Cardinals game. One man ended up parking in a no parking area and found a $30 police ticket on his windshield.
We just followed this line of cars that were being waved by a gentleman that had a vest on, and it was $40 to park in this grassy field.
Considering they were scammed, the city voided the tickets.
People getting taken advantage of. They already paid $40 to park, and now they have a $30 ticket. We can't recoup that $40, but at least we can make sure that we don't levy another $30 on them.
A convicted Beverly Hills con artist has pleaded guilty to duping investors out of $18 million through an elaborate cannabis business scheme. Mark Roy Anderson entered a guilty plea in federal court to 2 counts of wire fraud. Authorities say Anderson concocted a sham cannabis empire while completing his sentence for a previous case. After his release from federal prison in Texas in 2019, where he had served more than 11 years for an oil investment scam, Anderson immediately launched his purported hemp business. In one scheme, he tricked investors in 2020 and 2021 into funding his company, Harvest Farm Group, falsely claiming he owned a hemp farm and could profitably process the crop into CBD and other cannabis products. In another scheme from 2021 to 2023, Anderson deceived investors by soliciting money for sham companies, Biopharma and Vertiv Bottling, falsely claiming they successfully manufactured and sold commercial products. Prosecutors say Anderson used some of the money to purchase a $1.3 million home, as well as vintage and luxury cars, private jet flights, and high-end retail purchases. Anderson, who is a disbarred lawyer, agreed to forfeit the fraudulent assets, including 15 vehicles and his property. He faces up to 20 years in federal prison. This is Scams and Cons News.
Scams and Cons is a member of the Evergreen Podcast Network.
Did you guys hear about that couple that went on vacation and one spouse murdered the other? In fact, the entire vacation was planned just so that they could make the murder look like an accident.
Ah, so like a slaycation.
Oh boy, sounds like a fun new true crime podcast to me.
On every episode of Slaycation, we'll examine true cases of people who were killed while on vacation.
Was it murder? Or just a horrible accident? That's up to you and the law to decide.
But either way, if you leave for your vacation in the plane and come home under the plane, you've definitely gone on a slaycation.
Join us every week for a fascinating new episode.
911, what's your emergency?
But make sure to pack your body bags.
Because getting away can be murder.
This is Slaycation.